Welcome to Power Talks with Santosa. Today we have with us Dr. Burdett Anderson Loomis, political scientist based in the US. Post-US election in 2008, things have been changing for America and its impact on the world cannot be sidelined. Dr. Burdett, how do you feel the winds of change in the US and how will it impact the world?
Well, I think that 2008 was a watershed election in the United States. Clearly we elected Barack Obama, the first African American. We came very close to electing the first woman in Hillary Clinton. George Bush, I think his administration in many ways was repudiated in a major victory by the Democrats. And so it sets up for substantial change. Democrats won both in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. So you have unified government in the United States, a popular president, and lots of problems to address. So the question is, what does Obama do? What does he choose to do? And what must he do? He clearly must address economic issues. But in many ways, he has the least amount of control over the economy. The economy in the world, in the United States, is not really determined by politicians. It's determined by a whole variety of factors. So the other thing we want to look at with Obama and the idea of change is focusing on his agenda, particularly health care, but other issues like the environment, energy, immigration, a whole raft of issues. And so far, Obama has proved to be very ambitious in his choice of an agenda, and I think we're working through how those ambitions will actually play out through the American political system.
But the moment Obama took charge of the White House, he had to face global economic crisis, which hit America pretty badly. It was similar with Bush administration when he first took his office. Within 1 year, he had to face 9/11, a serious crisis in the US. Is it a trend in American leadership that they have to face a severe crisis the moment they take their office?
Two in a row I wouldn't exactly call that a great trend. It does, clearly both Bush and Obama have had to do that. Bill Clinton, honestly, in 8 years in the White House, never faced a truly major crisis. And so I think it comes and goes. There's kind of a luck to it, or bad luck. Bush, in some ways, took advantage of 9/11 to do a variety of things. He created the Department of Homeland Security, the largest department in the United States. I think that he chose, in some ways, to invade Iraq. So I think that he used 9/11 in various ways. Presidents do use crises to project their own policies. Obama, in many ways, has more crises. Not only does he have foreign policy crises, wars still in Iraq and Afghanistan, to say nothing of other foreign policy issues, but he does have, as you suggest, this economic crisis. Initially, he produced a large stimulus package, by far the largest funding of stimulus that has ever been done in the United States, $800 billion. And I don't really think he gets quite the credit for doing that he should. Now, whether it's working or not is another matter. But he came in and within 6 weeks.
Post 9/11, President George Bush was very quick at reacting towards it. And as a result, we had the war on terror in Afghanistan and later on the invasion of Iraq. As an author on politics and as a professor of political science at University of Kansas, how do you view his immediate reaction towards 9/11?
Well, I think the immediate reaction was pretty good, and his popularity soared. He had a 90% approval rating. I think that by and large in the United States, and I'll just speak for the United States, there was great support for the initial war in Afghanistan to throw the Taliban out. And I think that structurally you needed to address homeland security in some way. Whether you needed to produce a very, very large department or not is another matter. But symbolically, that looks very powerful. We're really doing something. So I think George Bush, short term, gets high marks. I do think the war of choice, and I would call it a war of choice in Iraq, turned out to be a bad choice. Clearly, we were not prepared for a long occupation of Iraq, and has created lots of problems, lots of costs in a whole variety of ways. I think it cost the United States great prestige in the world.
After the global economic crisis was announced, there were skepticisms that the Obama administration had a calculated plan with it, and that they had a quick fix in due course of time. Post 9/11, there was a similar allegation against the Bush administration. Do you see any truth to that?
I do think that the Bush administration, as all of us were caught off guard. I mean, what do you do in a situation like this? I mean, this is an historic event. And as I said, I think in many ways the early decisions were pretty good. I really have no quarrel. And I don't think most Americans do. You may have some scholars having some problems, by and large. But I think what's more troubling is that over the long run, Bush did not bring the Congress in, did not seek a broader consensus on actions that were very, very serious, historically serious. And I think he pushed presidential power far past where it should have been. And the presidency has grown over the last century, and no question about it. But I think Bush pushed it farther. Whenever he had a choice of doing something by executive order, and often in secret, he'd take it rather than consult with the Congress, even when the Congress was in Republican hands. I think that Obama is really taking a different tack as he goes about looking at health care, the economy, other issues that, for better or worse, he is bringing the Congress in, because I think his version of change, his view of change, is to make it permanent, to legislate, to try to build consensus. Sometimes it's very hard. On health care, it may be impossible. We may see his program being put through in a partisan way, but he's
Take place in 2012. The economists have calculated that the global economic crisis might see some recovery by 2011, and it might take even longer for the United States. To what extent will this determine the success of Obama's administration?
That's a very good question. Certainly, there are many Republicans who are looking at becoming president. It takes 4 years to run for the presidency. Certainly have any number of people who would like to run. But the strategic situation in the United States right now is the Republican Party is really quite weak. Its electoral coalition is not very strong. And so in terms of the likelihood of Obama winning a second term, I think it's pretty substantial, even if there's not great economic recovery. I think there needs to be some economic recovery, and as you suggest, most people think there will be. Whether it will be quick or not is another question. But as time goes on, certainly the economy becomes not George Bush's problem, but Barack Obama's. Certainly Republicans will try to hold him to task for his policies. But I think on the economy, he's getting reasonably good marks.
During the election campaign, Barack Obama made several promises to America and to the world as well. Which ones of them are for real, and which ones were just for the sake of political speeches?
We'll see. I think that that comparing political rhetoric and what gets done is worth doing, because a surprising amount of promises are kept. There's some scholarship in the United States that shows if you go through a party platform and look at what happens 4 years later, that many, not all, but many of the items in the party platform have been fulfilled. That said, I think Barack Obama said he was going to stop the impact of lobbyists. I mean, it's not going to happen. And in fact, I think he's pulled back somewhat on that. Because many of the lobbyists are very talented, and it's a free speech issue. I mean, you get to lobby. It's part of the deal. Other things, I think, on health care, it's more complicated. I think many people looked at Barack Obama and saw in Obama what they wanted to see. And for an elected politician, that's very good, because it helps you build a coalition. On the other hand, if everyone has high expectations, some of those expectations are going to be disappointed. So I think you see some people on the left right now in the United States being disappointed on Obama's compromises on health care. You see people being somewhat disappointed on some compromises on the environment and energy. And yet he's moving forward with his own set of policies. So in many ways, I think many people will be disappointed to a greater or lesser extent in Obama. What political leader does fulfill his promises? By and large, I think, as I've said, that Obama is very ambitious. He has an ambitious agenda. And so if he does 70%, 60% of his agenda, I think he will satisfy most reasonable people who supported him.
We'll continue with our conversation after a short break. Do stay with us.